the low FODMAP diet, hailed by experts, endorsed by doctors, and praised in the media. But here's the inconvenient truth. It's not the magic bullet for everyone. Why is that? Honestly, the research has been a game changer, and it's been amazing for providing a treatment option for those with chronic digestive issues who otherwise never found a good solution from their doctor. And it can be really effective, but so many people who try it have said it didn't help. So what gives? In this video, I'm going to go over the 3 main reasons it might not work for you. And so these lessons are very important if you're thinking about trying it or you've tried it without success, because that leaves a lot of clues. Reason number 1 that the FODMAP diet doesn't work is that you've been FODMAP stacking. So what does that mean? As the name suggests, if your consumption of FODMAPs is very frequent, even if you are having them by the book in low FODMAP quantities, they begin to stack upon one another, and that can trigger symptoms. So on paper, it shouldn't be an issue, but then it still is, still causing you symptoms. So let me give you an awkward real-life example of this stacking concept. So in 2022, I was in Charlotte for a gastroenterology conference. Now, this is ironic. And for my first meal, I went to Chipotle. I'm just a sucker for Chipotle when I go to the States. And so as they're making my burrito, they asked if I want hot sauce. And I'm like,
oh yeah, I love spicy food.
The server then proceeds to ladle on 2 full scoops of this Chipotle hot sauce. And I'm thinking, okay, here we go. This will be spicy, but great. Spoiler, things would not be great. This burrito was way too spicy. But proud as I am, I did finish it because I have a high tolerance for spicy food, or so I thought. Now that night, my guts were very crook and upset. I hardly got any sleep, and the entire next day I was constantly racing off to the restroom at a gastroenterology conference. So it's super awkward. But here's the point of the story and how it relates. So our body's ability to tolerate chili peppers in hot sauce, just like with FODMAP compounds, is dependent on the dose or quantity that we consume. So it's the dose that makes the poison. I want you to remember that quote or write that one down. It's the dose that makes the poison. In other words, we can tolerate some FODMAPs, but once a certain threshold is exceeded within a 24-hour time period, symptoms are triggered. So I would have been fine if the amount of hot sauce was smaller, like it was the same total amount but spread out over many days or a longer time period. But it's stacked up all in a short period of time, and in this case, 1 meal, and cause symptoms. And the same happens with FODMAPs. Even if you're eating low FODMAP foods, repeated exposure of these portions can cause the FODMAPs to stack up and exceed your threshold that you tolerate and trigger symptoms. Now, the most common example is eating a low FODMAP meal and then eating the leftovers or a second portion of that exact same meal the very next day. It can cause stacking and therefore symptoms. So if the low FODMAP diet isn't working for you, make sure you're not FODMAP stacking. On to number 2 now. And this one revolutionized how we speak to and work with patients when we realized how influential this was, because for non-responders to diet change, this was the key next step. So number 2 is that you could have vagus nerve hypersensitivity. So what is that and what does it mean? If you've ever heard of the gut-brain connection or the gut-brain axis, it's referring to the vagus nerve. Now, this is a major nerve that connects our brain with our heart and our lungs and our digestive tract. It's the literal physical connector or pathway between our thoughts and feelings and emotions and the function of our gut. It's the reason why you get butterflies when you are nervous, or why you get a pit in your stomach when you realize you've left your phone on the bus or the airplane. Now, research shows this nerve or pathway can become hypersensitive in those who've experienced trauma, chronic stress, anxiety, or depression. And it can make our gut hypersensitive to what we eat and even alter your gut microbiome. And so if this is not treated properly, then it can be all sorts of compounds contributing to symptoms, not just FODMAPs. And so many won't see consistent or notable changes on a low FODMAP diet if they have vagus nerve hypersensitivity. The good news is the scientific community knows more about treating this than ever before. And there are a range of ways to go about it. It could be talk therapy, counseling, gut-directed hypnotherapy, vagus nerve activation training, the list goes on. We provide many of these for our clients, but there are also apps you can try for free to start exploring some of these modalities yourself. Let's move on to number 3, which when you look at the data, is the elephant in the room really that nobody is talking about with the FODMAP diet? Yes, we know that FODMAP intolerance or sensitivity is a big issue for most IBS patients, like 85% of patients according to their data. But that leaves 15% who do not benefit from changing their FODMAP intake. And so reason number 3 a low FODMAP diet isn't working is because perhaps you don't have a FODMAP intolerance. That is a possibility we want to consider. And I guess it's a good thing, right? It's one less thing for you to have to worry about, but it leaves you in the dark on what next, right? Because there are other groups of food compounds that can trigger symptoms, such as food chemicals like histamine and salicylates, or more common ones like caffeine, chili, like I mentioned in my Chipotle ordeal, or it could be a bacterial overgrowth in the small intestine that is causing the issue, right? Rather than the large intestine where FODMAPs are typically the problem. It could be a parasite or a travel bug you got, or it might not be physical at all and related to the brain and stress. Without knowing your situation in more detail, I cannot say, of course. Now, with all this being said, if you're still watching, the question you might have now is, if you fit into any of these 3 points I just described, the question you might have now is, well, what should I do next? Now, I strongly recommend you watch my next video here on the 3 steps to treat IBS and get symptom-free, because I explore in detail 2 effective options that aren't related to the FODMAP diet at all. Thank you for watching.